Welcome to episode 9 of Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Syl.
And this is exciting. It seems like forever since we've talked, but I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of strange. It's very strange this time with the whole isolation, the quarantine.
Yes, but, this is our second isolation podcast.
Yes, so we are doing it remotely.
It is odd. It feels like time is just sort of standing still somehow. I don't know.
It's like
but at the same time, it's flying. I don't know. It's very, very strange time, like you said.
Yeah. So first, we just want to start off thanking our healthcare workers and everything that they've been doing for us and they continue to do. And the sad situation in some cases, and they're somehow able to get through each day and help everybody basically try and get through this pandemic. So we thank all of them. And
I want to thank all the people too that are staying inside to, help limit the spread as well. And especially on a day like today, which was so beautiful. We're recording on Sunday, May 3rd. And it was really our first lovely day, more than 20 degrees. Yeah. And, hopefully people stayed inside. It was hard to do, but yeah, limiting our contact, that's not easy. And in a way, we're kind of thankful that we get to be in contact with our listeners in this way. So, and with each other too, because this is sort of like our chance to sort of chat as well.
Well, I have to say, actually, I was supposed to do this the last show, but I have to thank Serge Ibaka. He's a Toronto Raptor, obviously, but not a Maple Leaf. But I just love his content on Instagram with his How Bored Are You segments. And then he's now, I guess, advanced a little bit and doing some talent show saying, how talented are you? So I just love the guy. I think he's just great on there. So thank you very much, Serge Ibaka, for the entertainment, because for me, these little snippets of like Willie doing the little TikTok Tuesday thing or whatever he was doing with his brother, I don't know what it was. He was in a nice place at least. That doesn't cut it for me. I like shows.
Well, the other thing,
go ahead.
The other thing too with him is with Ibaka, he's involved in charity work too. He's doing like ads for Fred Victor, for homeless people, which, are definitely a group that are hard hit in this situation. So he's a special guy. It's hard to believe he was once thought of as a shy NBA player. I can't even imagine.
I can't imagine
that was ever the case. Yeah. But yeah, he's definitely someone who is fun to watch and keeps us all engaged.
Yeah. So have you been watching any of the old games on TV?
You know what? I'm not into it.
No?
I listen to a few on the radio, but for some reason, like I don't know, I'm kind of one of those people that is like, once I've done something once, that's it for me. I'm really not been interested in rewatching stuff.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of them, like the Sens Leafs game, and I watched the Game 5 game of, which I totally forgot how Mike Foligno with that crazy goal celebration where he jumped out of the air and everything. And game 5, I watched that last night on the Saturday night. But no, the game that I loved, I watched on Friday night, I think. It was the Habs versus the Nordique. It was hilarious. They had a bench clearing brawl at the end of the second period. It was a playoff game. And then they had another one to start the third period. I love that. Just like old time hockey at its best sort of thing. So that was, and the goalies got into it. It was just great. Anyways, I watched that the other night. That was fun. And but anyhow, that's all I haven't really watched too much other than that. And just to get into now where we are with the league and I guess the state of the league at the moment, and the possibility as to whether or not we will have a Stanley Cup playoff on April 29th. So I guess on Friday or Thursday, I think. There's a possibility of the NHL said there is a possibility for team facilities to be open mid to late May. So the advice from the league was for players to consider whether they should plan to return to their club cities if they are elsewhere right now. So that's what they said.
I mean, they'll have to, like, once the decision is made, they'll have to come back because they'll have to quarantine for 2 weeks, regardless.
Yeah. And I think that's why they're kind of trying to maybe get people to do it sooner.
Well, and the other thing is ideally, I would think that it would make the most sense for everyone to travel on the same day, because that way the quarantines will be the same. Do you know what I mean? Like there should be a small window of 1 or 2, maybe 3 days where they get their flights and they do their travel, because otherwise, if you have people coming in at all different times, then not everyone's going to be available at the same time. So that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then it would have to be by clearance from the governments too, from either where they're leaving from or where they're coming to, as far as whether that becomes deemed essential travel.
Yeah. So, and the Prime Minister said this morning, like there was the question this morning about the NHL and whether or not I guess for players, whether or not they're going to be allowed across the border. And
well, that's the thing.
Yeah. And he did say, he's like, we're not at that point yet anyways. But he did say that whatever the situation is, they're going to have to follow the country's rules, like once they get across that border sort of thing. So they would have to do the quarantine thing or whatever sort of thing. So I don't know. To me,
that's the thing though. Like that's why, like, I really don't think, like, I know that one of the places that they were thinking of having a hub was in, like, 2 of them are in Canada. I don't really see how you can do that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to have a situation where teams are going to have to travel. So then you're going to basically have to have 2 weeks in the middle of all of this where people have to quarantine again. Like at some point, they'll all have to be either all in Canada or all in the States.
Yeah.
Because they can't keep going back and forth. It's just not going to open up that way, I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. It's there's still a lot of work to do, obviously. But the latest possibilities for those hub cities, the 2 Canadian cities, one of them was Edmonton, and the other one, the Atlantic, it was by division as well, which I thought was interesting. Right. They kind of said. And the other one, they said Toronto, but it wasn't really 100%. I also thought Buffalo might be a good setup there.
Yeah,
Buffalo,
I actually think Buffalo might not be bad because it's smaller. I think Toronto is just, the population is too great. Although the only thing I can think of for Toronto is that because MLSE has that Hotel Saint Germain, which is basically attached to the Scotiabank Arena, they could house everybody in that hotel. Basically.
Yeah. So the other one,
I guess they wouldn't have to go anywhere. They'd basically be at the rink the whole time.
Yeah. And they also have like the Ford Center, like for the practice facility, and they also have the Ricoh Coliseum they have too, so for games. So and the other ones
basically bus them back and forth.
Yeah. The other cities in the States was a toss up between Minnesota and Dallas for the Central Division, and then Columbus or Pittsburgh for the and Pittsburgh has a really nice setup there. I know that with that I forget what it's called. It's the Mario Lemieux Center there. They have lots of ice pads there. It's it's just outside of Pittsburgh, but anyhow, there's a lot of things to be worked out there.
Regardless, like the teams, however many teams they have, they'll have to be very close proximity to the rink because they're planning on doing triple headers every day, right? So three games each day. Plus then there has to be practice time. So that's going to be chaotic for the players. Yeah. But I guess that's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. And then depending on how long the NHL is willing to wait to resume the season, they did actually say that, like, even for next season, a start could be in as late as December. So they are willing to push this as far as they can. And then interestingly, on Friday night, late Friday night, there was some developments on the draft where I guess the NHL sent a memo to the team saying that they wanted to, I guess they're pretty sure that they want to move up the draft to the early June, which...
Oh, okay. So make it sooner.
Yeah, make it sooner, which to me, it didn't make any sense either, because I think to myself, okay, normally at the draft, you do trades. Like, how are you going to do a trade? Like,
maybe they won't allow trades in this situation.
I don't know. Steve Yzerman wasn't for it, and a lot of other teams aren't for the early draft part, and there's a lot of questions that remain for that. But apparently, the league, by the sounds of it, is going to shove it down their throats, as someone said, to say that they're definitely going to have it.
Maybe it's a marketing issue. Maybe they want to get people talking about the league again before we actually start playing again.
Yeah, I think they saw.
That's sort of what's got the ball rolling with the NFL. Like when they did their virtual draft, nobody was talking about anything else. In fact, they're still not talking about anything else. Since that draft happened, and I think that was more than a week ago now, it's been nothing but NFL talk everywhere, right? So I guess it probably has to do with that more than anything else, just to get people talking about the NHL again.
That's what I think it is. But then there's other logistics that they have to think about before actually doing it. So anyhow, lots of questions still surrounding that and everything else. So again, we really don't know where we're going right now. So hopefully next month we'll have another better update for you. But that's where we're at right now. And we're actually really excited. We got quite a bit to talk about. Hopefully we get through it all here. But the first thing that we want to talk about is a huge development for women's hockey. Earlier in the month, on April the 9th, Florence Shelling was announced as the GM for SC Bern in the Swiss top tier league. So that was a huge development. First female general manager of any league, I think, like for a men's hockey league anyways.
Yeah, and men's league.
Yeah, and she's the first female to be named the GM of a men's professional hockey team, if I can spit that out.
Yes, and it's pretty amazing. She is. It's not anything that's out of left field at all. She's a highly qualified person. She's a goaltender actually, and she's a 4-time Olympian for the Swiss team. She won the bronze medal with that team in Sochi, which was, I remember, quite a big deal as well, because that Swiss team has really, really emerged. She's represented Switzerland at 11 world championships and medaled in bronze in 2012. She is the only woman to ever play in the Swiss Men's National League, B League, which is the second highest level of hockey in Switzerland. So, she has quite the resume, but what was really interesting actually is how she ended up getting the job. She didn't actually even apply for it. She was actually called by the team, and she was super surprised to get the call. And she was asked if she would be interested in the position. And so she got to thinking of it, and she decided it would be a really good challenge for her. So she discussed strategy and everything with them, and what her vision was for where the team could go. And it obviously convinced the executives that she was the right person for the job, because they gave it to her basically without her even expressing interest herself first. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because, like you said, she didn't even know that the job was available, or like to say that she was even being considered. And I read also too, when she was first started playing hockey, that she didn't even know that there was a women's league like in Switzerland. Like they contacted her again.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, what is it, like a thing with her that they just contact her so that she doesn't have to apply, or she doesn't have to go there? They contacted her to be the goalie.
She's got something special about her, and And maybe that's part of it, that she doesn't even realize that she has these special qualities or these leadership qualities herself. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I in some of the reading that I did, in preparation for this, I do find that Europe is a little bit ahead of North America in this regard, as far as elevating women to these positions, because, for example, there's also another woman, Vicky Montagaza. She was just recently named the president of the Swiss League's team, the Lugano team, and also Jenny Silverstrand. She's a Swede, and she's just recently named the CEO of the Swedish League. So there's women that are being elevated to pretty high positions in Europe, but it doesn't really surprise me in a sense, because there's a lot more women that are in high levels in politics there, in Europe as well. So it could be some of that, but it's I think that people, teams are recognizing that women have a unique perspective to offer, and are looking at that.
Yeah, like you're saying. I mean, it's not, I guess, going back to men and the way you were saying that, like they're a bit ahead in Europe as to hiring women. But if you look at even here in North America, like there's no European head coach. Like nobody.
Right.
Hired,
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another way of seeing that here in North America, even on the male side, like I'm sure there's very good male like head coaches in Europe, but
true,
how none of them have come to the NHL is just crazy. I don't know.
Exactly. It's kind of that. It's still very much that sort of old boys club here, but it's starting to change. I mean, like even in the NHL head office, there's at least 3 women that are in executive positions. The NHLPA also has a couple of women that are in high level positions. And we're starting to see, more and more, even in the ranks for referees, although we did note that the NBA is much farther ahead with regards to having female officials.
Yeah. I don't see why it's taken this long on the referee side. I don't either. Especially like that doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, no, they did have, I guess Katie Gay was the one of the 4 women to officiate in the NHL Rookie Tournament last year in September 2019. And she participated in that 3-on-3 tournament in the NHL All-Star Game with the female 3-on-3 women's event. So that was really cool. And the one thing I know a lot of people probably already know, like obviously Barb Underhill works for the Leafs as their skating coach. And it got me to thinking, like I was reading a little bit about her too and what she's been doing with our players and just like the techniques that she's teaching them, like from figure skating that would help a hockey player, like when it comes to like edge work and using different muscles so that they aren't wasting energy and stopping and starting, that sort of thing, right? And then I thought to myself, I don't even know how to skate. I thought the only time...
Oh, yeah. I know what you're going to say.
Yes. The only time I've ever skated was on the ice of Maple Leaf Gardens. And I made... Right.
That was in 94.
Yeah. Was it 94?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Because I made the one round around the ice at Maple Leaf Gardens, and I pushed myself along the sides of the boards, like basically all the way around. So I made one circle, and that's my only time. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's just...
I remember that. Remember sitting on the Zamboni? That was the highlight for me.
That was your highlight, yes. Yeah.
I know, the Zamboni.
Yeah, so...
I always wanted to drive the Zamboni.
Yeah, so I was thinking to myself...
Why aren't there any female Zamboni drivers? I haven't seen any women Zamboni drivers either. We need a female Zamboni driver.
Yeah, forget about David Ayers, right? But
he's had his 15 minutes of fame already.
Yeah. But anyhow, I thought to myself, I should maybe get some tips from Barb Underhill for skating, right? Maybe I can learn how to skate properly. But yeah, so anyways, it's all coming together for women basically to be recognized, in different roles of professional hockey, where it's mostly male dominated. We got to move on to our Leafs talk.
Yes.
We actually do have some Leafs talk. But before we get into Leafs talk, I was mentioning to Syl, I have something to say about Brad Marchand, who's a total idiot. I don't understand this person. I think he's actually obsessed with us. Like, he thinks our team is obsessed with the Bruins, but I think he's actually, it's in his head too. Because a couple of weeks...
But you know what? That's so funny because they've beaten us. Like,
yeah, I know.
So what is his deal? Anyways, go on.
I don't know. Anyway, so a couple of weeks ago, he was doing one of these NHL media availability interviews. And they asked him, if the playoffs were to start in the summer, how would the Bruins do? He's like, I don't know, but I would be worried about having to face the Leafs. Out of all that, I'm thinking to myself, I know. I was like, he was actually, I mean, he got me to react. I'm thinking to myself, what an asshole, right? But then it actually didn't blow up at all, because normally Leaf fans would be like, or the media would say, haha, like he's being whatever.
Facetious.
Like, facetious or whatever.
That's a nice way of putting it, actually.
His usual thing. But I'm thinking to myself, like, we're almost 2 months, or at that point, I guess it was like 6-7 weeks into the quarantine. I'm thinking to myself, you're thinking about the Leafs? I'm like, oh my, I don't know. I just think that
I really don't think so. Yeah.
No, I think he's just doing it just to, he thought he would
troll.
get a bigger reaction. Yeah. But anyhow, we'll go on to our Leafs and our player signings. And it was funny when any little bit of signing or happening in hockey, if it's Leafs or not Leafs, like everybody's like right on it. So in this case,
starved for any kinds of information.
In this case, I think too, like, I guess we've signed Alexander Barabanov. That's the kid we signed. He's 25 years old, right winger, to a 1-year deal, entry level deal for $925,000. It was interesting because I thought the only reason why too that people are probably so, like, I mean, obviously we're starved for hockey news, but then I also thought to myself, we know with the cap situation, like, it's so like we don't know what's going to be going on, and
we need some cheaper players to fill some spots,
and so all these signings, these little signings, like, we have to hope that they are like everyone is saying, is this guy going to be the next Ilya Mikheyev sort of thing? Right. And we don't even know.
It remains to be seen if Ilya Mikheyev can continue to be Ilya Mikheyev.
Right.
Because who knows, even if he heals up, if his shot's going to be the same, or like there's still so much, that remains to be seen on that part too, because you never know.
Yeah.
Until he starts playing again.
Yeah. And then we also signed, I guess, the defenseman Noel Hoffenmeyer, which it's funny to be talking about these names that are like you never heard of them before. But anyhow, we signed him. He's 21 years old. He was drafted by Arizona in 2017, but he never signed with them. So
now he's a free agent.
Yeah. So there's him, and then there's Jeremy McKenna, who's a forward, and he was an overage OHL graduate who was undrafted, and he's a right winger who recently played in Moncton. So these two signings is kind of funny. There is more about, like they were saying, it's more about seeing potential in these two players because we don't have a lot of picks in the draft,
right,
for this year, right? So we're trying. I mean,
it's. There may be a bit of a gamble, but it doesn't hurt. It's not going to hurt to check these guys out, right? And see.
Yeah, so it's just basically, I guess they're trying to find other ways to fill the talent, basically to fill the cupboard with talent. So we'll see how it goes with these three players. Anyways, obviously that Barabanov, he was the most. Whatever the media was going on about him the most.
He was quite a sought after player. There was at least 20 teams that were interested in him. So
yeah. And then of course we have to get into the, I guess with those signings too, you have to think of the players that you have currently on the roster, which and their contract negotiations. Like obviously with Hyman, I don't think we've mentioned it before, with Hyman and Freddie both going into the final years of their contracts next season. And then also Rasmus Sandin and Mikheyev are both RFAs next season, which means
they still haven't, we've still got RFAs this season, like for example Dermott, and we haven't heard anything about that going forward, but he's still somebody that they'd have to sign this summer.
So Sandin and Mikheyev, basically it's a similar situation as Marner, what he went through last year. Obviously they're not going to be getting the same money as what Marner did, but
I don't think it's going to be the same sort of situation with those two.
But when it comes to RFA status, that he was an RFA, right? It's the same thing. So I don't know.
But it's not the same kind of draft class though, because part of the situation with Marner wasn't just him and his contract. It was all the other guys that had to fall into line after him. And so that's part of what made it special, is because that draft class also had a lot of really good players. So there's leverage and comparables and all of that. So that's part of what kind of messed things up there and created a lot of chaos.
Actually, speaking of that, going back to Freddie Andersen, I was looking at that because I don't know, there's a lot of negativity in my mind, like to say that we actually need to change from Freddie Andersen. And I don't know who these people think we're going to change to. Like I was looking to see what's available. Like you got to look at the style of our team too. Not every goalie can play in.
Well, we've seen that. Like look at all the people that have been run out of town on a rail as far as goaltenders go. So,
and like they're going on saying like he is going to be 30 years old. That's fine, if he's not already. But I looked at the other. I guess because we'd need to get a number one goalie then. Like obviously you can't just like it's not going to be Jack Campbell that's going to be our number one
guys
goalie. That
we have that are prospects, I think are still works in progress. Really, they're not ready, not even close.
Young. Yeah, like goalies take a while.
I don't see any of those guys being like a Binnington, stepping up and just all of a sudden lighting the league on fire. I suppose it could happen, but I don't see it as of yet.
Yeah, and I just I don't understand. Like a lot of people or most people are saying like Robin Lehner is the guy to get. He's a UFA this year after this season. Right. I don't know that Robin Lehner could actually play behind like what we have as a defense, like our style of play, that he would
I don't know. I mean, he did pretty well in Long Island. Mind you, they're much more defensive oriented club.
Yes. Yeah.
So
he's the only guy. And then actually this year also there's Matt Murray is a UFA. He's only 26. Right. And then the other ones are Holtby.
And they actually, Pittsburgh might be willing to give him up because they've got a young guy that's been doing pretty well.
Yeah, the only thing is
I can't remember his name. Starts with a J.
Jerry. Tristan Jerry.
Oh, right. That's it.
Yeah. And then there's Braden Holtby, but he's also 30.
Yeah, he's too old.
So,
I mean, when it comes like with him, like you may as well keep Freddie then.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
the only thing is that he's won a cup. So that's part of the pedigree there, I guess. But just because he won it then doesn't mean, I don't know. I've never really liked him as a goalie. Like he's not consistent enough for my liking. I mean, I kind of feel like at least with Freddie, you know what you're going to get every night. He gets his slumps. Like even with that, he's pretty consistent with his slumps too. So
I just think with him too, he hasn't had all these other goalies that we've mentioned. I don't know about Leonard too much, but they've all had a quality backup. Freddie has never had one.
Right. No, true.
In all his time here. So
except for maybe McElhaney and then they let him go, which is a minor error.
Was messed up on that. But I just think if you actually give him a quality backup that I think he'd be fine. And he obviously I don't know, there's always the chemistry too with the team that you need to have when it happens. And he obviously has a chemistry with basketball and Austin Matthews in the swimming pool from last week. That was fun. But anyways, moving on to our next topic. It's actually Freddie is actually in here too for me a little bit. So we might not have we might have covered a lot of the discussion about him, but the Athletic had a Maple Leaf fan survey in April, which was quite interesting. I don't know if many of you, hopefully some of you listeners out there have subscribed to the Athletic, but maybe some of you don't. And James Mirtle basically did this fan survey, and there was 23 questions, and we're going to go through. I picked 2, Syl picked 2 to go through because we probably have 3 shows, I think, if we actually went through every question.
But, so we're going to try to cover some between this month and maybe next month as well.
So I'll basically give you my 2 questions. The first one that I had actually, and it does have to do with Freddie Andersen. It was, who's your favorite member of the current Leafs team? And I actually, funny enough, I have a Marner jersey. It's probably because it was on sale, though. That's probably why. Because my vote was Freddie Andersen. I don't know. He's grown on me. And now this bothers me, though, too, because every time I like a player, they get traded. So now I'm worried. Right? Like,
this is your JVR jersey that you bought.
Yes, yeah. And I had the thought in my mind when I got that jersey, too, that JVR jersey. Oh, did you see? Actually, he had a little girl.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's
Scarlet.
Nice.
Scarlet.
Lots of NHL babies being born right now. So
yeah. And I tweeted out, I said, welcome to Leafs Nation as well. Because the Flyers said, welcome to the Flyers family. And I said, you're welcome in Leafs Nation too. But anyhow, my vote was Freddie Andersen. I just like his calm, cool demeanor, and he just, I don't know. He's
the overwhelming choice in the survey was AM34 with
what a surprise
40%. And I have to say, I'm one of those people because that's who I picked also is Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
So I just do find him very exciting.
Yeah. I was surprised that Zach Hyman got double the votes of Freddie. I don't know.
Yeah, that is. Well,
I don't know.
Some of that could be recency bias because of when this survey was happening, the abrupt ending of the league, where each player was, because Freddie was kind of coming out of some struggles. Hyman has been sort of on fire. So part of it could be that kind of thing. It's that recent feeling that you had about the player.
Yeah.
Interesting in that regard, though, is that next to Austin, Morgan Riley was the second most popular, which is interesting because he was just coming back. He only played 1 game and he's missed a lot, but I guess people did really miss him a lot, enough to vote him second.
Yeah. And then what was interesting too, all of this is very interesting actually. That's what it makes you think who was actually voting, like exactly. But Marner and Nylander were in a dead heat for 3rd spot as the 3rd favorite. So
that's
if you took that last year, let's just say when Nylander was in that contract,
if they would have done this
way.
Survey last year, it would have been totally different. But that's exactly what I was just going to say, is that it's a tale of their 2 seasons. It sounds like a book, Tale of 2 Seasons, because Marner has not been quite as good this year as he was in previous, and Nylander has been excellent. So I think that they kind of cancel each other out. So in that regard.
Yeah. My second question that I thought was interesting was, what percentage chance do you believe the Leafs have of winning the Stanley Cup in the next 5 years?
So what did you say?
So you had from 0 to 10, 0 being no chance, obviously, to 10 being like a lock. So I voted 7.
I was actually pretty close.
I was actually going to do 6.
Really?
I don't know why. Yes. Yeah.
I said 8.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah. So 7
So
is
I am obviously a little more optimistic than you are.
Yeah. I just think 7 was the most popular at 20.8% of the vote. And a lot of people also voted at 8. It was 18.8% of the vote. Right. So both of us are in the majority, basically. And I don't know. I think with the defense is my issue, really.
Well, of course. But 5 years is a long time in hockey lifetime. 5 years is a long time. That's why, if you're thinking next year, then I would say, okay, fine. But in 5 years, you can do a lot to change your team. A lot. So and still have this core. That's what you have to think. In 5 years, we'll still have this core, and you have the opportunity to make a lot of changes still.
But can you keep this core? That's the thing. That's the whole, in order to improve on the defense the way it is, that's the big question, basically, to keep these 4 players at the salary, at the $40 million, at this half of the salary cap, whether or not you can actually build around them, keep them all.
Well, you may have to let one of them go.
To me, you have to. And then if that's the case, then I'd say I'd be more in the 8 category then. At least you can, because you'd get a quality, hopefully, defenseman.
Well, but for example, what we were talking about earlier is that, some players are going to have to move out for some other younger players to come in. So if we're looking at, say, a guy like Nick Robertson, who lit the OHL on fire this year, right?
Yeah.
For him to come in, where is he going to play? I mean, that is going to, would he take potentially Nylander's spot, for example? Where is he going to play where he can have an impact? Because he's not going to make an impact on the 3rd or 4th line. He needs to be a 1st or 2nd line winger.
He needs to play. He needs to play
exactly
in order to have any effect, to see him.
So
play.
That's to me. That's why, in 5 years, there has to be movement, which means you can't be 100% in love with everybody on our roster any given year. But they'll have to make some sort of move for more D.
I mean, obviously, there were some people that voted at 10 that it was a lock. I want to be in that cut.
That's a fair amount of percent, man. There's 3% of people thought that. So
we both want. I mean, deep down, we want obviously to happen, sort of thing, but we need to be a little bit realistic too. Okay, so what 2 questions did you pick?
Okay, so the first question that I picked was question 12, which was, who is your favorite Maple Leafs player of all time? Now, for this one, I thought it's a no-brainer as to what the answer is going to be, but I was floored at what the actual favorite player chosen was. And by quite a large margin, it was Matt Sundin that was chosen as the favorite player of all time, which blew my mind because I'm not a big fan of him, especially as a captain. So my favorite player who I picked was Doug Gilmour, and he was 2nd place, but quite far behind at 15%. And then I think that your favorite player
you already
came in that. 3rd, who is Wendell, right?
Yes.
But then I thought about it that this definitely says a lot more about who actually participated most greatly in this survey and the demographic that they come from. I think that a lot of these people are in that kind of 18 to 34 bracket and grew up watching Mats mostly. And I'm not disputing that he was not an excellent player, but as far as when he was the captain and our top player, there wasn't as much engagement because when the team moved to the Air Canada Centre, there was not as much interaction with players as we had when we were watching them at Maple Leaf Gardens. You could very much more interact with them and get to know them, and just the way they were splashed all over the papers. It's to me
totally
this survey question is. Speaks more to the demographic of who answered it than who the actual favorite player really would be, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no argument from me. Obviously, I'm not a fan of Matt Sundin either.
And the guy is like disappeared too. Like, that should speak to it as well. Is that how involved is he? Like, I would give more props to Borje Salming because he's always there and he always shows up, and and that's the funny thing to me, is because when Matt came here, he basically talked to Borje, and Borje, kind of gave him, a little bit of a lesson
for the captaincy,
in being
basically.
a Leaf.
Yeah, it was for the captaincy. Apparently, Ballard offered Salming the captaincy, and he refused it at the time. And he says to this day that was the worst decision. That's what he told Matt Sundin as well.
He would have been a great captain.
When they went to him, like, to ask Mats to be a captain, like, Mats went to Salming, and Salming said, yes, do it. Like, he's like, that's to be like, it's a total honor to be the captain of an original six storied franchise, and the way the fans are, and just everything about being a Toronto Maple Leaf, like, do it, sort of thing, right? So he did it, but it's not to say he wasn't a bad captain or anything like that. Like, it's just that, I don't know, there was just something to do with, also, it was always about finding someone to play with him. Like, with our players, like with Wendell and Dougie, like, they would play with anybody and make them better. Yeah. And Sundin did in some ways, but it was always about him, not so much about the other. I don't know. I never
found that he ever had another gear. Like, he was so good and so talented, but at one level. Like, that's the thing. But you had guys like, Wendell or Dougie, and there's no one who's going to say that Matt Sundin is not more talented than those guys. But those guys would take the team on their backs sometimes, and in a very passionate, intense way, often too, which was very visible and endeared people to them. And that's something you never saw from Matt. The only time that I ever saw him get excited was that one time when Wendell Clark came back the first time, and he hit the glass when he scored.
Yeah.
But other than that, he was the same guy every game in, day out, which there's something to be said for that. He's obviously super consistent, and no one's going to question that. But as far as elevating or, taking things up to another level, I didn't see enough of that from him for me. He did love
do it
him
periodically in the playoffs. Like, can give him that, obviously. Like, but I don't know. It's just not quite as memorable as Wendell and Dougie.
My next question was the one that's right after this. So, question 13: if Kyle Dubas had to trade a core member of the Leafs in the next 12 months, who should it be? For me, I said Nylander, because I thought, okay, makes sense, because he could make a lot of teams better. He's very versatile. He's a talented guy, and his cap hit is not ridiculous. I think people thought it was ridiculous at first, but I think we're starting to see that it's not a bad deal for the talent that you're getting with him. But I was shocked, I tell you, that the person who received the most votes, and I think this is still basically back to the whole negotiation, it was Marner.
Yeah.
Which I'm like totally shocked that he's the person that people would want to see most traded.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
I was the same with you. I was Nylander. I was debating. I was almost putting Tavares, but it makes no sense to put Tavares because he's the captain and they're not going to trade him, and nobody's going to take him with the we're not going to get enough value for him given his age and where he's at in his career. And so I picked Nylander. I figured like he's the only guy that technically where we could get like that stud defenseman. So I picked him. And with Marner, I was like floored too. I thought to myself, okay, obviously these people are like really looking at like if it was last season again, it would be totally flipped. any money.
No, and I know. And I think that a lot of this is sour grapes because of the money he makes. But with that regard, it also doesn't make as much sense to trade him because we're never going to get full value in that trade. We'll get a better value for trading Willie.
Yeah. And I actually thought, too,
I couldn't believe it.
Going back to Freddie, of course, because Freddie was second on this. He was at 28%.
Right. Yeah.
I thought to myself, logically, these people that voted for Freddie, who do they think they're going to get in return as a number one goalie?
Yeah.
They're not going to get, like, nobody. And they really want to put Jack Campbell in the position, like to say that he should be the number one goalie based on 4 games, however many he played.
Yeah.
I know
although
great.
He has been working on his flexibility over this. I
love the guy here. Actually. Like he's very.
He's got a great attitude.
Yeah, the personality wise is great and great attitude.
And he's a really good foil to Freddie because Freddie is like so cool, calm, collected, doesn't say much, very stoic, and Campbell is like this positive, Energizer Bunny type guy. Yeah. It's a good combination actually.
Yeah, so that's why I personally think with Freddie, like I know it's dangerous, mind you, because you're going into the last year of the contract before he becomes the UFA, and then if he ends up playing spectacular or whatever, then I don't know what's going to happen. Dubas is going to have to obviously figure that one out, but yeah, I as a trade possibility, I don't see that being logical to trade Frederik Andersen and actually get a number one goalie in return that we most definitely need, obviously. And the 2 young guys, that Joseph Wall and I forgot the other guy's name. But anyways, on the Marlies, they're too young. They're like 21, 22 years old.
Yeah, and they're unproven too. And they're not going to be able to prove anything this year because, everything's shut down. So,
So, yeah, everything's shut down and we're going to have to shut this down now too. So,
and so we're just going to say, everybody stay well, stay safe, stay sane, be smart, and go Leafs, go.